G'day, welcome back to the channel and the drone news. This time with a bit of manned aviation news thrown in for good measure. I want to start with a look at some of the rules. The rules generally in most countries say you should never fly your drone or your radio control model over a roadway, especially a busy roadway. And it makes a lot of sense. I don't do it because imagine if something goes wrong, your model could or your drone could fall onto the roadway, it could fall onto a car. If a car was traveling down the roadway, they could frighten the driver, they could swerve, hit another vehicle. People could get injured, people could get killed, property would almost certainly be damaged. So I do not fly my drones and model aircraft over roadways if this vehicle's there. I just don't. It's just not worth the risk. But this video here shows another reason why you would not want to fly your drone or your model over a roadway. Let's take a look at it. It's from ABC 13 Houston. Looks like a Stearman biplane taking off from a road, and see the street light here. You watch what happens when it hits that street light. Bing, there we go. The street light's just fallen down, but it gets worse because a little further along, there is a wire strung between two poles. And if we look, you can see that pole shook because the wire across there hit the biplane. The biplane's now careering out of control, smashing into the ground. We'll see it again. I won't interrupt it. There we go. It takes off. It hits the light fixture. It hits the wire. Bang. That's it. And they show several times in this video. I guess they wanted to pad it out, but there we go. This biplane crashes into the ground. Now, look at the result. That biplane is totally destroyed. You're not going to fix this. A cut and a polish will not repair this. This is basically destroyed. So imagine if you'd been flying your drone there, and you don't want to fly your drone over a roadway because obviously there's a very real risk you could be hit by a biplane taking off from that road. Well, obviously I'm being a little bit facetious there. What I'm trying to get at here is, for many years, we have been told by regulators that we, as drone flyers, we are more likely to make reckless and foolish decisions when flying our craft because we do not have skin in the game. Now, skin in the game is a term that regulators use to say basically, well, if we do something wrong flying a drone, we're not going to get hurt. But if you're flying there in the pilot seat and you do something wrong, you're risking your own life. So in theory, you're much less likely to take unnecessary risks. Well, I think this video kind of proves that that's a load of bullshit. This pilot decided to take off from a road without even inspecting the road ahead, one would assume, to see that there was a wire there. There were street light fittings that were encroaching at ground level. They didn't encroach, but when you get up to the height the plane's going to be when it takes off, yes, they are right in the way of the aircraft. So this pilot did not do a pre-flight walk of this piece of roadway to look for things like wires and streetlight fittings, and as a result, he made a very bad decision, even though he had skin in the game. Skin in the game means nothing. If skin in the game was a thing, we would not see pilots crashing their aircraft as a result of bad decisions virtually every day, and often those crashes result in loss of life because the consequences of making a bad decision when flying a drone or a model are generally pretty trivial. You might break or lose your drone or your model, that's it. But if you do the same thing, if you make a bad decision flying a manned aircraft, then property gets damaged and people can die. So when we look at risk, consequence is a major factor of risk. It's one of the two key factors of risk. And so this is obviously incredibly risky. And the fact that people have skin in the game makes no damn difference. Pilots make bad decisions all the time. So if regulators roll that one out to me when I'm talking to them, I tell them to stick it where the sun doesn't shine because actual real-world experience shows that it plays very little effect in pilots' decisions. Too many pilots make bad decisions despite having skin in that game. Right, so what else was sent to me? Let's have a look here. Yes, this is very interesting. We've seen those massive displays of swarms of drones, which are synchronized to produce wonderful 3D patterns in the sky, and this happens all over the world, but it's quite common in China too. Chinese drone displays are getting increasingly popular as an option to fireworks because no smoke, far less danger to the people than exploding pyrotechnics over their heads. So drones are safe. Pyrotechnics, not so much. And here we have a drone display in China that occurred recently, and just watch what happens. See all the little drones? They're falling from the sky. These drones they've obviously gone into fail-safe. Something's gone wrong, so the drones are falling down from the sky. But look how slowly they're falling. These are obviously sub-250 sized drones, and they've been programmed just to descend at a slow rate. And if you look carefully, one is about to hit this car and bounced off it. There we go, just bounced off. That's what happens. Another one falls down. People have got plenty of time to get out of the way, and even if they didn't get out of the way, the worst that would happen, this one just bounces on the ground, It's only going to tangle in your hair if you've got long hair, and that'll teach you for having long hair. So again, drones are safe. This is the safety of drones over alternative technologies. Unmanned aviation will always be safer than manned aviation. And again, we talk, don't fly over people. Well, if you're flying a very small craft and it's fail-safe set properly, the risks are incredibly small, incredibly small. We've seen far more in the way of airshow disasters with manned aircraft. And when you have an airshow disaster with a manned aircraft, generally people are going to die and lots of property is going to get damaged. In this case, nobody died, no property got damaged. Perhaps maybe some of the drones got damaged, I don't know, but that's not really the concern of the public. It's not going to endanger the public if some drone gets stood on because it arrives next to you. This is just, again, it's a big win for drones. Now, let's compare that to what happens when manned aviation or manned aircraft fall from the sky. We've seen that these little drones, when they fall from the sky, nothing really happens. They just bounce on the ground and people just can walk around them. Here, I'll just show you again, just because I want to show you. There we go. We'll stop that one there, just falling past the tree. Let's have a look at what happens when manned aircraft fall from the sky. In this case, very tragic. 8 dead in Milan plane crash. Private plane carrying French passengers smashes into empty office building in suburbs, killing everyone on board. And look at that. Contrast that to what we just saw with the drones falling from the sky. This is a manned aircraft. Whenever a manned aircraft falls from the sky, very bad things happen. Look at this. Obviously, the building is destroyed. The aircraft was destroyed and people died. And as I say, contrast that with this. Look at that. That's the difference. That's the difference. So as long as they're going to allow manned aviation and accept the risks that's associated with it, then they should stop overly regulating our hobby, because the risks associated with our hobby are so damned small. Take another look, another example. Here we got an aircraft just this week caught fire. The engine caught fire after a bird strike during an aborted takeoff at Atlantic City International Airport. It looks like a 737 or something similar. Does it tell us what it was? I don't know. It doesn't seem to say there. But there was some onboard footage I found on YouTube. This is taken from one of the seats in the aircraft. Look at this. There we go. There's the flames. There's the smoke. Obviously, that's not a particularly good situation. Was it caused by a drone? No, it wasn't caused by a drone. It was caused by a bird, or maybe birds. Every year, the last figures I read, I think about $440 million worth of damage in the US alone from bird strikes. What was the level of damage from drones colliding with manned aircraft last year? I can't remember. Certainly not $440 million. No one has ever died as a result of drones striking manned aircraft, and it's unlikely that that will happen anytime soon. The level of risk is just so damn low. So, yeah, that's what we're dealing with. And those are some events just this week that show the huge difference in the risk profile between a drone and a manned aircraft, and some of the misinformation that our regulators would try and force upon us to justify the massive levels of over-regulation we're seeing. And now another piece of interesting news. Now, this is a website called The Conversation, which I think is basically a news site, academic rigor, journalistic flair, it says on the little tagline, the masthead up here. And this is a story about Google's wing operation in Australia. Now, I've done a couple of videos on this, and I pointed out that Wing is not a drone delivery service. It is simply painting a picture so that Google can bring out their traffic management system, which is where the real money is. The only reason Wing exists is to justify government spending a huge amount of money on Google's traffic management system. And I think these people have also spotted this. The headline reads, "Privatizing the sky. Drone delivery promises comfort and speed, but at a cost to workers and communities." And if we go down towards the bottom of this, it talks about all the hype that Google's spouting and goes through all the PR stuff that's been coming out and all that sort of rubbish. And if I can find the piece that I'm really looking at here, here's a key piece of stuff. It says, "The Wing is well positioned to protect its agenda and make itself essential to future evolutions of the law." Keyword agenda. And as I said, Google has an agenda in this. Their agenda, as I've stated, is to be the critical infrastructure supplier for, they create the illusion that drone delivery is going to be so big, we need a piece of infrastructure that will control these drones to make sure they don't crash into each other and endanger people. So they create the illusion with Wing, and then they step in with their UTM, their traffic management system, and say, "We have the solution to your problem, the problem you didn't even know you had. Give us lots of money." That's the whole thing. That's what they're looking at doing. And they go on to say, owning the broader traffic management system is clearly a part of the long-term business strategy as Google has shown with its Android operating system, building infrastructure, even if it's open source, can create a real commercial advantage. And that's it. The publishers of this story have obviously realized that Google's end game, as I've said, is to be the people that provide the infrastructure, who clip the ticket, who have a pay to fly. You have to pay them to fly. That's where they make their money, with thousands or millions of little tiny transactions, $1 a time. Then if you have to pay to fly, they've got a guaranteed revenue source, guaranteed income. And that over time adds up to a huge amount of money. So it's nice to see that an independent publication has picked up on this. Now, will the politicians realize this? Are they clever enough? Well, I've noticed something over the years, put my cynical old man hat on. The more money you put in a politician's hand, the lower their IQ gets dialed down. So providing Google and Wing are greasing the palms adequately, the politicians will never choose never to realize that they're being duped, that they're being conned, fooled by this into spending a huge amount of money on a piece of infrastructure that they just don't need. Because as we know, drone delivery is not going to be the thing that Google and Wing are portraying it to be. But politicians, many of them are just stupid and greedy. And so it is what it is. What can we do? Well, we need to push back, especially in Australia. You guys need to push back against this. Educate your local politician. The politician that represents you, go to them, show them this article, link in the description, and explain to them what Google's doing. Point out, this is folly, this is stupidity, this is, that, and point out why the hobby should be still allowed to exist in the airspace without this ridiculous levels of overreach we're seeing growing on an almost daily basis. So there you go. That's the drone news for this day, this episode, this edition. And I've got a question. Do you want more of these? Is this a useful service to you? Is it worth the time and effort it takes to watch a video like this, or shall I spend my time doing something else? You go to the comment section and tell me now, because I want to make sure I'm producing content that you want to watch. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Overregulation is like a tumor. It's killing our hobby. It must be terminated. Now!